Hello and welcome to Ask MotorInc. Today I have 3 questions to answer and they're all about riding skills, so I'm super excited. If you're wondering where these questions are coming from, they're coming from motoring.com's section called Circles. Circles sort of works like a forum, social media combined together. People are interacting, they're constantly asking each other questions. Some of these questions are addressed to us and 3 of those questions are here on this episode. Let's get straight into it. BLY has a V-Strom. It's his first bike, 7 months old, and he's been trying to ride it better, and in the process he's trying to rev match and he feels like he's not doing a good job of it and is messing up. He's wondering what suggestions do we have for him to learn to rev match as a beginner. First, BLY, I think this concern is coming from a bit of, will I damage my gearbox? Honestly, Japanese gearboxes, they're not that easy to damage, so you do have latitude to mess around with rev matching a little bit, getting it wrong here and there, and you should just be fine. The only trouble sign is if you're missing a shift. That's a sign of trouble. And what I mean by missing a shift is you made a gear change and it didn't go through and now it's in false neutral or it bounced out of gear. Those are maybe likely to create problems. Otherwise, if you are finding a gear, maybe the wrong one, the rear wheel's locking up a little bit in the process of rev matching, you're not really causing significant mechanical stress to the motorcycle. You will be okay. Persist, you will learn. The feeling that you're looking for while rev matching is obviously it's always a downshift. Obviously you're blipping, and as the revs fall after the blip, you're trying to down change at the right minute. If you get the timing right, the process will feel smooth. The revs on the engine will come up and you'll be in a lower gear smoothly. If there's any hiccup, a sense of the rear wheel is about to lock up or it's dragging the bike backwards, then you need to finesse this further. This is physically a complicated movement because you are revving, there is a sense of timing involved, you have to make a gear change and you're paying attention to traffic, etc. So it does get complicated. One of the reasons I think this might be happening is because you're trying to practice this as you're heading somewhere. Might be worthwhile to take half an hour on Saturday, go to a relatively deserted road and just work on rev matching, so you can pay all the attention to the skill, the timing, the physicality of having to move the foot and the hand at the same time. If you can do that, that might help. If you're trying to learn to rev match in traffic, sometimes you'll also have the brakes on. So brake, blip, shift, timing, complicated. If you're on a deserted road, you may be able to let go of the brakes and just focus on rev matching, and that might help sort out the skill faster. Next, we have Vivek. Vivek is saying, hey guys, recently went out on a commute, 50 kilometers on his Jupiter 110. Then the rain came. He had 25 kilometers left. He had his rain gear. He was fully prepared, and he still faced a difficulty in the corners, following vehicles at a safe distance, braking intuition. It became a little bit herky-jerky, and he's wondering what the tips to ride in the rain are. There are 2 things I want to bring up here. First, we are at the beginning of the rains, and the first week of rains, I'm going to call it, is a slightly different approach from the rest of the rains. To me, if I can, I simply avoid 2-wheelers for that first week of rain. And the reason is the roads are at their slipperiest and most unpredictable during that week. This is because the first raindrops are falling. They're washing up all the oil and diesel that has fallen on the road during the previous dry spell. And that's the time when the road is slippery. We want a week so that the rain can wash all of these contaminants off, restore the grip to the surface, and then you suddenly discover a lot more confidence. So if I have the option, I simply won't pick a 2-wheeler for that 1 week. Now, after that phase, you will be surprised at how grippy the roads are, especially if your tires are good. So first, I would tell you that check the tires on your Jupiter 110. If they're reasonably recent, that's one problem solved. The second thing that happens in the rain, obviously, is that the grip levels are lower. More importantly, your visibility is a little bit hampered. It's lower than usual. And even more importantly, everybody else is also struggling to see out of their vehicle a little bit. Cars may have a little bit of fogging. Wipers may not be fast enough in heavy rain. Other riders have fogged up windshields. We're all struggling with visibility a little bit. The core thing I want you to do is to anticipate even more than you normally do, which means you look farther ahead from your scooter, you anticipate what might be a hazard and what might be an opportunity earlier, and you react to those things earlier, smoother and softer, so that you can use the grip that you have, go less close to vehicles if you can avoid it, and generally ride much smoother than before. For years together, my goal for the rains has always not been to ride faster or ride clearer. It has to be to emerge the other side of the rains a smoother rider that anticipates better. And if I keep these 2 things in mind, most of the time I have great fun in the rains, and that's what I suggest you do. The last question today is from PY Knox. PY Knox is asking, how do you guys manage Pillion, and what do you ask them to do, or what should a rider do for a Pillion on bad roads and somewhat light off-road? Like if you're going solo, you can just stand up on the foot pegs, but what do you do if you have a Pillion? Now, this is a fantastic question. And I was actually answering something on a DM just 2 minutes ago where somebody else was asking about Bengaluru roads, his motorcycle. It seems to feel really stiff when he rides alone, feels great with a Pillion. Pillion. Then I asked them what had they done for their preload. The preload was set up for the Pillion, and he says, yeah, but the problem is when I'm riding solo, and that's genuinely an issue. And this is where the Pillion story to me starts. Think about it like this. If you've set up the preload correctly on your motorcycle, or you're lucky enough to be, let's say, 70, 80 kilos, then the preload from the manufacturer is roughly in the right place for you in the first place, right? In this situation, the motorcycle's attitude is as it was designed to be, stable and flat, and therefore it responds a certain way. Now, when you add a pillion to this picture, the first thing that happens is the pillion sits on the back of the motorcycle and tilts the motorcycle up. So now it's going to steer much slowly, it'll feel less responsive, it'll feel like you're putting more effort into it, braking will feel less sure, etc., etc., etc. And the reason why you have preload adjustment on 95% of all the motorcycles on sale is so that you can jack the preload up to account for the pillion's weight and then bring the motorcycle back to flat. It's still going to feel slightly heavier when you brake, for example, because you are two human beings on the motorcycle now, but because it's flat, the steering response will feel much closer to normal. How the motorcycle reacts to how you normally ride will feel much closer to normal. That's the job of preload. So to me, if you're taking a pillion on temporarily over the weekend, tour, luggage, all of this needs to be accounted for in terms of preload. You can actually measure sag and do this. It is a little bit complicated, but once you figure out the first 2 times that you do the sag measurements, it takes a couple of people to help you, but it doesn't take a very long time. But forget that for a minute. What I would say is I do a simple thumb rule, which seems to work. If the spring is linear, which means that the spring rate remains the same across the spring, and you can see that on the spring will look roughly the same in terms of the gap between the coils as mounted on your suspension. If that be the case, and you assume whatever the manufacturer gave you as is about 65-70 kilos of rider weight, then you simply divide the remaining harder clicks by the total preload of the motorcycle, and it will give you a number saying each click is maybe 12 or 14 kilos. So you estimate that your pillion is, let's call it 65 kilos, 12. So you need to go 5 clicks of preload for this pillion. You'll generally be in the zone. This is not a super accurate way to do it, but without going into all the sag measurements, this should give you a better setting than you otherwise would. The other way to do this, which also works really well, is if you're riding with pillion and luggage a lot, which means you've loaded the motorcycle as much as you normally would at max, just max the preload out, see how it feels, and then back the preload off until the feeling feels nicer. Changing preload can seem like a troublesome thing to do, especially if your shock is hidden behind a body panel. But to me, after you figure out how it's done, it takes about 2.5, 3 minutes to do at max. Plus removing and adding the body panel. A lot of motorcycles have the rear shock absorber out in the open with the preload collar visible. Some of the toolkits do have a preload spanner. On Amazon, you'll get a preload spanner for 500-600 rupees. And to me, it's so important to do this that it does make a big difference. The next thing is, how do you deal with bad roads and what do you tell a pillion to do? The pillion's rules are simple. Rule number 1, they are in charge of the ride, not you as the rider, and therefore you follow their instructions. They should tell you to speed up, to slow down, to stop. Whatever it is, you comply fully with what they're requiring. And when you go to an off-road, a poor road situation, if they begin to get uncomfortable, this is the communication mechanism they would use to tell you, slow down, stop, I'm getting uncomfortable, whatever it is. So preload, they are in charge. And the third thing you do is you smoothen the ride out as much as possible. As far as standing up on the pegs solo goes, I've been listening to world travelers who do travel to up on seriously heavily loaded motorcycles, sometimes with modified suspension. And there are 2 schools of thought in there. There are a lot of people where the rider does still stand up and the pillion remains as still and stable and seated as possible. There are other situations where the road is so bad that the pillion gets off, walks through the bad stretch and gets back on again. And there's still a third group of people where both of them stand up for the off-road section, which obviously requires a lot of skill, confidence and trust in each other. That's the most complicated way to do it. Maybe the most beneficial way to do it. So there are multiple solutions to this. But the baseline to me is this. If you've not set your preload, you've not given the equipment the chance to work at the best it can. If the pillion doesn't feel in charge of the ride, they're never going to feel as comfortable as they could. And when they tell you to speed up or slow down, you should. And on broken roads, usually this is enough for your pillion to guide you into making them feel comfortable, which could be, I'm not feeling comfortable. And you would say, I'm going to try a little bit faster and see if that helps. Sometimes it can. At other points, you'll say, okay, I'm going to slow down a little bit more. Let me know how you feel. Worst case scenario, okay, you're just so uncomfortable, I'll stop. Why don't you get off, walk those 200-300 meters until you feel like the road's gotten better, get back on it and we'll go for a ride. That's how you deal with the pillion. We want to make the pillion as confident as we can in the overall motorcycle experience part, in how the motorcycle feels for them to sit on, in how you respond to their requirement and how much in charge they feel. The more we can welcome them into the motorcycle community this way, the happier they will be to ride with you. That's what I have for this week. These were questions questions from circles with the hashtag AskMotorInc that appear on circles, which is the forum part of the MotorInc app and motorinc.com. If you do have questions, please go there. Please use the hashtag AskMotorInc. If you ask questions, you will discover people there who are ahead of you in the curve. They've had that question, they found a solution, they moved on, and they will help you. We will help you. And of course, if you know better than somebody else who's asking that question, please do feel free to help them as well. Thank you so much for watching.